Welcome back to Hidden World Facts. Today's video is going to be different. We're not going to ancient history or outer space. We're going somewhere closer. We're going inside the human mind, specifically, the minds of people capable of acts most of us cannot comprehend. This is not about glorifying violence. This is about understanding it. Because psychology has come further than most people realize in answering the question that haunts every one of these cases. What makes a person become this? The FBI estimates there are between 25 and 50 active serial killers operating in the United States at any given moment. Not historical. Right now. Today. The overwhelming majority will never be caught. Not because law enforcement isn't skilled, but because the defining characteristic of the most dangerous of these individuals is their complete ability to appear normal, to hold jobs, to have families, to shake your hand and look you in the eye. Ted Bundy worked at a suicide prevention hotline. John Wayne Gacy ran a successful construction business and performed as a clown at children's parties. Dennis Rader, the BTK killer, was a church president and a compliance officer for his local government. The monster is rarely the stranger in the shadows. The research increasingly shows it is someone living an ordinary life, hiding something that most people around them never see. The triad and early warning signs. For decades, criminologists looked for a pattern, a set of early warning signs that might predict violent behavior. In the 1960s, psychiatrist J.M. MacDonald proposed what became known as the MacDonald Triad. 3 childhood behaviors he believed were linked to later violent offending: persistent bedwetting beyond a normal age, animal cruelty, and fire setting. The FBI's Behavioral Science Unit studied convicted killers through the 1970s and 1980s and found these behaviors appeared with notable frequency in their subjects' histories. Edmund Kemper, who murdered 10 people including his own mother, tortured and killed neighborhood animals as a child. Jeffrey Dahmer dissected roadkill as a young teenager, seeking, he later said, to understand what things looked like inside. Today, the MacDonald Triad is considered an oversimplification. Not every child who exhibits these behaviors becomes violent, and many violent offenders showed none of them. But it opened the field of criminal profiling. The recognition that the adult pattern of behavior has roots, detectable, documentable roots, in childhood. And that recognition changed law enforcement forever. What brain science reveals? Modern neuroscience has taken the question further than behavioral observation. Brain imaging studies of individuals convicted of violent crimes have revealed consistent neurological differences that are changing how we understand the origins of violence. Neuroscientist James Fallon made a discovery that shook him personally. While studying brain scans of convicted killers for research, he noticed a consistent pattern: reduced activity in the orbital cortex, the region of the brain responsible for empathy, impulse control, and moral decision-making. Then, as part of a separate family project, he scanned his own brain. The pattern was identical. James Fallon, a successful neuroscientist, a loving family man, had the brain scan of a killer. His subsequent research led him to what many now call the 3-legged stool theory of violence. Neurological predisposition, genetic factors, including specific variants of the MAOA gene, sometimes called the warrior gene, and crucially, severe childhood trauma. His conclusion was stark: biology may load the gun, but environment pulls the trigger. Most people with the neurological profile never become violent. The difference, the research strongly suggests, is what happened to them as children. The role of trauma. Of all the factors that appear in the histories of violent offenders, childhood trauma is the most consistent. The FBI's 1988 study of 36 convicted sexual murderers found that 43% reported being physically abused as children, 74% reported psychological abuse, and nearly all described feeling deeply isolated. unable to form genuine emotional connections with other people. But here is what makes the psychology genuinely complex. The vast majority of people who experience severe childhood trauma do not become violent. The trauma is a factor, not a sentence. What researchers found matters most is the presence or absence of one thing: a single supportive relationship. One person, a parent, a teacher, a grandparent, who provided consistent, genuine care during childhood, was found to be the single strongest protective factor against violent development, even in individuals with neurological risk factors and severe trauma histories. One person can make the difference between a life of violence and a life of survival. That finding, perhaps more than any other in this field, tells us something important. Not just about what creates violence, but about what prevents it. The profiling breakthrough, understanding this psychology, didn't just change academic research. It changed how law enforcement catches killers. Criminal profiling, the discipline of using behavioral evidence to deduce characteristics of an unknown offender, was essentially invented by FBI Special Agent John Douglas in the 1970s. Douglas personally interviewed 36 of America's most notorious killers in prison, spending hours in conversation with them, studying their language, their reasoning, their self-justifications. What emerged was a framework that could predict, from crime scene evidence alone, the likely age, occupation, social habits, and psychology of an unknown perpetrator. The first major test of this methodology was the Atlanta child murders in 1979 to 1981, the killings of 28 young African-American children and adults. Douglas's profile pointed to a young black male with specific psychological characteristics who knew the victim's community. Wayne Williams was arrested in 1981. He matched the profile precisely. Profiling is not magic. It is not the television version of reading a crime scene and knowing everything instantly. It is statistics, psychology, and pattern recognition, built from thousands of hours of conversations with the people who committed the worst acts imaginable. It is, in the most literal sense, knowledge built from darkness. Here is what the science ultimately tells us. Violence at this scale is not random. It is not born from nowhere. It is the product of neurology, genetics, environment, and, most importantly, the presence or absence of human connection at the most critical moments of a person's development. Understanding this doesn't excuse anything. It doesn't reduce the gravity of what victims and families experience. What it does is give us something more powerful than fear or revulsion. It gives us the possibility of prevention, because if we understand the factors that create this, we can intervene before it happens. We can be the single supportive relationship for a child who has none. We can fund the research that identifies risk early. We can build systems that catch the warning signs before they become crime scenes. The science of criminal psychology is not just about understanding monsters. It is about making sure fewer of them exist. Subscribe to Hidden World Facts, because the most important things to understand are the ones that make us most uncomfortable.